Hello and welcome to this Drive Live Careers interview. Today I'm Dion Knowles and I'm joined by Patrick Mattis. Patrick, how are you today?
I'm fine, thanks, Dion. I'm fine, thank you.
Brilliant.
Looking forward to this.
Good. So today Patrick is going to be talking about his career. He started out by studying a mechanical engineering degree. He did mechanical engineering, software engineering, and you're also a project management specialist now, I believe, Patrick. Is that right?
That's right, Dion. That's right.
Fantastic. Good. Well, we've got people joining us live at the moment, and I expect many more will join us as the course of the live session continues. If you've got questions, those watching live right now, you can put those into the chat box. If you're a student, it would be great to see you there. Let us know where you're from as well. And put a smiley face in the chat box if you're a student. I'll show you what I mean by that if I can find it in my emoji list. There we go. Any old smiley face. Students. So there you go. We've got, just to say, shout out, Jeff Hull is from New York. Jeff has joined us today. We've also got somebody from Italy. I can't see your Sorelina. Sorelina has joined us from Italy. Great to see you as well. So as you join the session, welcome everybody. Let us know where you're from. If you're a student as well, feel free to put your questions in the chat box as well. So let's get going. Before we do get going, a reminder for those who are watching on demand, because plenty of you will be watching this on demand. Then you can also put your questions in the chat box, not the chat box, the question box below. Good. So let's start off now, Patrick. You're an engineer through and through. What made you want to become an engineer when you were younger?
Wow, that's a really good question. I've always had a fascination with how things went together, how things worked. And I think also I was interested in making things kind of practical, in practical things. I didn't really know what it was to be an engineer, to be honest, but I just liked science and sport. Yeah, I just like sport, as I say, science and how things work together. Now you might think, well, how does sport kind of link in? I've always loved team sports generally: football, cricket, basketball, rugby. And to be honest, I think I'm a bit of a sports nut. But what I didn't realize, and we'll come to this a bit later, was that whatever team activity, it doesn't have to be sport in particular, but if you, I didn't realize that being interested in sport and being interested in team activities would really help my engineering career and really allow me to see how teams work unofficially through my sport and all that sort of thing, which actually translates directly into the work life, especially in the project management bit, which we'll come to talk about later.
Okay, great. Good. I'm quite.
But yeah, I've always loved engineering and always loved technical things and knowing how things worked.
So you went to, I'm assuming you must have gone through O-levels or whatever, or GCSEs, whatever system you might.
O-levels, A-levels, yes. Yeah, just went through there and then went to Salford University where I did my first degree in mechanical engineering. Which was great, really enjoyed that. After I had done that, I then left and went to Cranfield Institute of Technology, as it was known then. It's now Cranfield University. And I did a master's there in robotics. And I was then fortunate enough to be able to join then the Rover group as a graduate engineer. And they had me under their wings for 3-4 years, which was absolutely fantastic in terms of being able to get practical experience, real world experience of applying robotics in building cars, in this case, powertrain units. But yeah, it was just absolutely fantastic. After that, yeah, so that was great
I'm sorry
experience.
about the noise, Patrick. You wouldn't guess what that noise happens to be. It happens to be my dog going round in circles on her bed so she gets comfortable.
That's all right. That's all right.
She still hasn't got comfortable. So it's when, and then you moved into robotics then at that time.
So yeah, so having completed the master's degree in robotics, I then, as I say, was fortunate enough to find a graduate position with Rover. And what Rover did was they actually, because I'd got a master's, they didn't send me around all of the departments. They basically, I was supposed to go around various departments. They basically put me in the robotics department for my 3 stints, for my full 2 years of graduate things. And that basically allowed me to really specialize in robotics, the application of them, the manufacturing side of it, the design for manufacturing side of it as well. So it was really, really helpful in terms of bedding down that robotics theoretical knowledge that one has to actual practical application.
So what would you, when you finished your degree, what made you go to Rover for a job? Did you just storm the market, say, I don't need to get a job, let's go out there and see who will take me? Or did you go out with a very much of a mission-focused purpose of the type of company or the specific company you wanted to work for?
To be honest, I was just looking for any job that would allow me to apply the skills that I had. So I was applying to a number of different companies. A number of opportunities came up, but the one that I took was Rover. It just seemed the best choice for me at that time. But I would say, if you've got a master's, it doesn't really matter if it's a special. It does matter if it's a specialism, I suppose. But if you're a graduate, the training that we generally have as engineers is general, that will allow us to go into basically any field and be able to, I think, master it and be able to. Sorry, my power supply is going for some reason. So I'm just going to move my phone a little bit. Apologies.
Yes, I can just fill in there. Yesterday we were having a chat, Patrick and I, we were talking about the priority of getting jobs, and your perspective was very much that just get yourself out there. You don't necessarily need to think about the end goal of where you want to take your career, but just because there are so many options to shift.
Yes, correct. Yes, I think if for graduate roles, yes, you want to try and see if you can get some experience, because that embeds you into the world and into the world of work. And that's quite important, because people want to know that you have the appropriate characteristics and flexibility to be able to work. However, obviously, if you've fallen in love with a particular aspect of a field and you want to pursue that, then, as I say, pursue it to the nth degree, if you know that that is what you really want to do. And some people know exactly what they want to do. Other people have a general interest in engineering and will be able to take any role and then specialize and master that role and build their career in that particular area. But if you do have an area that you love, then pursue it. I would, yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
No, I was just I just fell in love with robotics, and I was fortunate enough to find a job in robotics.
So when you, in terms of what was it about robotics that made you really fall in love? Was it, some vision of, I don't know, I always think, when I think of robotics, or not now, but when I used to think of robotics, I'd think of sci-fi films with robots in. I wouldn't think of production lines and things like that.
No, I don't think you think of production lines. I think you think of sci-fi things. The thing that made me fall in love with it is this application of control systems. It's mechanical engineering, it's electronics. It's a kind of a multidisciplinary field, and there are so many aspects to it to be able to get a robot to either, design one, build one, and to get one to work and interact with the real world. I mean, obviously, we're getting closer and closer, but it's about how do we build such units to help people, and that was what I was thinking about in terms of my desire to get into robotics, and then it becomes more prosaic. Obviously, you're thinking about how to build things and so forth. And but yeah, it's that love of that multidisciplinary field and what robotics entails.
Right, okay. So, I want to think about your graduate time, because there will be students watching this, and the first careers experience might be when they first get their graduate roles, and what to expect from those graduate roles, and what they need to put into those graduate roles as well, because often it's you get out as much as you put in with these kind of things. In terms of setting people's expectations as what they're going to get when they go into a graduate role, are they going to just have to go and be somebody's dog's body, or I mean, of course that will vary according to organization, but what's your experience there?
I found obviously you need to be embedded into an organization to understand its processes, the culture in terms of how does that organization work, getting to know people. But the biggest thing that any graduate can take into their role is one of enthusiasm. And that cannot be underestimated with respect to being enthusiastic and getting involved in the work and being able to go, not always, but sometimes beyond what people are expecting. When I first went into to work, you're kind of surprised that the working day is so short, because as a student, and especially as you've been doing your last year, you're putting in a lot of hours. So, you could be putting in between 40 to 60 hours a week on your studies. And you go to work, and then all of a sudden it's 37 and a half or 35 or 40. And it's kind of quite a different mindset. Also, obviously, you're going to meet a wide range of different people, different age groups, different backgrounds. They're not all going to be academic. So you're going to meet a wide range of people. And this is where the sporting element comes in terms of being able to work with a team of people and being able to accept them for the role that they play in the team. So they may be, which is designated as a lower role than you, but actually you being a graduate is going to be kind of, you're on the bottom rung anyway, so to be honest. But as you get into a business and into a role, you'll see how important it is to be able to ensure that you are a good team player so that you can contribute to the team and to the business. And as I say, enthusiasm and flexibility goes a really long way.
Maybe we can come back to talk about what some might call soft skills, but soft does make it sound like it's a lesser important skill. But perhaps we can talk about those in a bit. Once we talked about it, so you did mechanical engineering, you decided to do robotics, and then you studied software engineering. Is that correct? Or you did a software engineering role?
Yeah. So after I'd been at Rover for around 3 to 4 years, I then left and I went to do a PhD at Birmingham University. And at Birmingham University, I basically then transitioned from a purely mechanical engineer or robotics engineer, a mechanical engineer really, into an engineer that I had to be able to design electronics, I had to be able to write software, I had to be able to design PCBs, build mechanical kit. So the PhD at Birmingham basically translated me or pushed me further into this multidisciplinary role where my software engineering skills or my software skills had to be basically improved dramatically. I wouldn't say I was a software engineer at the end of the PhD. What I was an engineer that could write software, but a software engineer would never, ever accept my software as being software engineering code. Because really what it was an engineer writing code to be able to do a job. And it's only having left that role, I then went on to do a postgrad at Aston University in high-speed machinery. So again, that's kind of more academic software. And I think I did improve my software engineering and control systems development there. But it's only when I got my first job at UK Robotics in Manchester that I began to become a software engineer in terms of doing the appropriate courses and being able to really understand how to architect and design software to be able to run efficiently and effectively. And previously, I was just someone that they would call a hacker. You would basically just get this stuff working, however it was going to work, it would work. And there you would go. But being at UK Robotics, 10 years, I think, 11 years, that basically turned me into what I would call a software engineer. And there I was developing software for different types and applications of robots, be that what's called hyper redundant robots, that's, robots with many degrees of freedom, or designing devices to do all sorts of applications. So so that's where I basically became a software engineer.
Do you think you could have got to that point without skipping out your mechanical engineering, or do you believe that was a fundamental part of what you were doing, or is that an element of your job itself still at that point?
It's a good question. I think the beauty about about robotics is that you can enter it through so many different aspects. So there are people that I was working with that came through an electronics degree. Some came through a standard robotics degree. Some came through mechanical engineering, aeronautical engineering. So there were lots. Some people came through software specifically. So there are many different entry points into robotics, and within there you can specialize. And I specialized in really writing software stroke control systems for these devices. We had mechanical engineers then that were designing the mechanical bits of it, electronics guys, etc., etc. But within the team, I was specializing in software engineering.
You knew in your different roles, so let's compare your mechanical engineering role and your software engineering role. Of course, a lot of the element of your time is doing that actual thing, designing or preparing for manufacture, whether it's new innovation design or manufacture. But what about all the other wraparound stuff, all the team, all the meetings and things like that? How much time would that therefore take? And was there a comparison between the two? Was there a difference, or was there the same balance of collaboration needed, for example? Sorry, I didn't prime you with these questions, did I? I'm just throwing them at you.
No, that's okay. No. That's a good question.
So
as you're doing a project, you're within a project team, and so that team basically meets every day, right. And they're interacting. There are ad hoc meetings. There'll be weekly meetings. There'll be monthly kind of customer contract meetings. So you'll get involved in a series of meetings. There'll be lots of ad hoc meetings in the kitchen, in the dining room, or in the kitchen area, around the water jug or whatever they call it. In our case, a kitchen with a kettle, where you'd have just lots of, as I say, small little ad hoc meetings. I've got an issue with this. What do you think? Or we could try this. What do you think? Etc. So that's where, so that takes up quite a bit of your time. And obviously, you then go off and then you try and get into the zone and spend a considerable amount of time doing the work that you're supposed to be doing.
Okay, I know that. I guess that leads us to talk about the soft skills and the importance and relevance of that. As an engineer, whether you're a software engineer or a mechanical engineer, we could talk about your project management bit of your career shortly, but I think we'll be focused on those for now. How important are those soft skills, and what kind of soft skills are we looking at, and how can students be developing those so that they're ready for the world of work?
I know universities talk about societies, and I think being involved in a society In my case, as I say, I love sport, but it can be anything. It can be drama. It can be any sport where any society where you're interacting with people about a shared love of a subject, object, whatever it may be. And if you can do that, that will introduce you to this concept of team working and getting on with people, because you're going to meet a range of people in your society, some with all different types of characteristic quirks that you will meet in the real world. And that is a preparation for you to be able to, that's just a preparation so that you know how to treat people, how to get on with people, how to be able to make your point and not alienate people, how to make friendships, how to repair things that go wrong. All of these things are so important. I know with engineering, a lot of people say, well, okay, he or she doesn't seem to be very social. They don't seem to have a very good set of interpersonal skills. Therefore, we think they should become scientists or engineers or something like that. Initially, that may get you into university, that may get you somewhere, you might get absolutely fantastic grades, but in the world of work, you have to be able to get on with people. And obviously there are always exceptions to the rule. So there will be some brilliant engineer that is in an office on their own, and they're able to come up with the product or whatever it may be by themselves. But that'll be very, very rare. In general, for the 99.9% of us ordinary folk, you've got to be able to get on with people. And as I say, you will pick up those skills through your society, and as I say, it doesn't really matter what that society is.
Right, okay. So the key is get involved, be social.
Get involved. Be sociable, be enthusiastic, be flexible. Yeah.
All right, good. Now, I want to learn a bit more about the robotics. So if you were to inspire somebody to go into robotics, have you got some examples of projects that you worked on where you explained the production line or the thing that you had to achieve with a particular robot when you designed it?
Wow. Okay. So, sorry, I'm just thinking about the example that I can give, because I can't really talk about.
Oh, yes, of course, that was a bit of a tricky one.
Yeah.
Can you talk about it in generic terms then, maybe?
Yeah, in generic terms. I think one of the biggest things that I would talk about, for example, for me, were snake robots. These are really hyper mobile, hyper redundant mechanisms. They've got a lot of degrees of freedom. And we were developing such robots to be able to enter restricted spaces, to be able to do all types of work. And for me, the more I think about robotics, I would personally like to see us develop social robots. We have a heck of a lot of people that are, especially in the lockdown, it's been emphasized, there's a lot of lonely people. There's a lot of people that need assistance. And obviously, it would be great if we were in the world of, there's this film called, I think, AI, or Artificial Intelligence, where, they've developed robots to be like children or to be helpers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be great if we could get to that point where robots were able to live in our spaces and to assist and to help. Obviously, that'd be great. I think that would be great to me.
So moving on from your mechanical and software engineering time, I must remind anybody who's watching it, please do feel free to put your questions in the chat box. Sambit's asked a question, a slightly unrelated one. So if anybody wants to look at Sambit's question in the chat box and knows the answer, then that would be great. Patrick, you then are now your project manager and you go into companies and solve problems. But how could you tell us a bit more about, you've got Patrick Mattis consulting for one thing, but why you moved into project management and what all of that really involves?
Yeah, true. Really, what happened was that as I was working for various companies that I was working for, well, for UK robotics in general and specifically, you initially get given a single person project. So you're given a task, a small little project of maybe £10,000 worth, whatever, and you said, and you're given this task and you go away and you do it to the best of your ability. And obviously, everyone's evaluating, how have you got on, and so forth. And if you do enough of those well enough, then people say, well, you seem to be sensible, you seem to be reasonable, therefore we will give you a slightly larger project, and this may include another person. And if you can't continue doing that, then eventually people say, yeah, you seem to be good enough. We'll give you quite a small project still, but there may be 2 or 3 people on it. So this project may be worth, I don't know, £100,000 or something, and there may be 3 of you or 4 of you on it. And what happens is that as you're doing the project, you realize that the technical aspect of it, although it's really important, the project management aspect needs to get done. And you begin to delegate away your technical aspects of the job to concentrate more on the project management side. But I must say, it is really difficult. I found it really difficult as an engineer to give up my specialism to do the project management, because you're thinking, I've spent all this time becoming this good in this area, and then all of a sudden I'm now delegating that away, and I want to do it, to be honest. I want some of the that technical kudos. I want to be the one that implements this algorithm. I want to read the papers and then pull out the techniques and implement them. And yeah, so you have this, for me anyway, I had this battle of wanting to do the technical work, but also wanting to do the project management work. But the project management side of it, if it's not taken care of, will not deliver the end goal to the customer. So you end up thinking, I really have got to make sure that the customer gets what he or she has paid for. And therefore you begin to let go of the technical aspects of it, because the other guys on the project, or other guys and girls on the project, know what they're doing. They can do the technical work, and you begin to delegate it to them and say, okay, you take it and I'll be responsible for the project management side of it. Why did I get into it? Sorry, that's a really long answer. The reason I got into it is because actually I found it was where I could deliver the best value. I'm not saying that I couldn't do software, but I found that I was able to get teams of people to work together generally harmoniously, but in general, be able to get people to work together in a nice way. And I found that, as I was talking about earlier, that I've always kind of been captains of teams and so forth. So that leadership aspect of it allowed me to use those same skills to mold a team and to say to the team, this is where we're going forward. Yeah.
So how much you do not do any technical stuff now? Is it all about bigger vision, managing the people?
Yeah. So currently I'm at a company called MTL, and there I basically manage 5 project managers. So I really don't do any technical skill. But the reason the technical skills are important is that obviously the projects are still technical. So you've got to be able to read about what the project is, understand what the project is aiming to do, be able to manage, in this case, project managers, but generally being able to manage the engineers, be that electrical, mechanical, software, and understand what they're saying, and to be able to then make an input into the project. yes, you're coming in from a different aspect of it, but you understand what they're doing, and they also understand that you are an engineer. Yes, you're specialized in project management now, but they understand that you understand them, which is important. So they're not thinking, oh, this guy is just a project manager, but he's got no clue about engineering. He's got no clue about software. He doesn't know anything about electronics, so I can bamboozle him. No, the technical aspects of it are still important for us to be able to speak to and lead the team.
Okay, interesting. So now looking back at your whole careers, where you've got to now, everybody faces challenges in their careers. There's key points where people go, oh, somebody was amazing. Maybe it was a teacher, or maybe it was a manager. I'd like to talk about those, both those opportunities that you've had and the challenges that you've come up against, and how you overcame those challenges, and perhaps what changes that you think should be made.
There's so many people to that. There's so many people to thank. I would remember a chap called Jeff Pegman. He was the MD for UK Robotics. He recruited me into UK Robotics, and he basically really helped me find my feet in that company, and basically helped me move forward in my career. So he was really, really helpful right at the beginning of my career, and still is. So I would mention him in particular. There are so many other people to mention. Challenges. I mean, I think one of the things that we were talking about a little bit earlier was obviously I'm a black man, so there is that issue of being able to ensure that people feel that they can trust me in terms of being able to deliver their projects. So there is this thing of trust. One of the things I would just say is that as an engineer going through the full educational system, there was no way, we never ever discussed the influence or the impact that Black engineers made to society. So, to be able to, I'm not a specialist in EDI or anything like that. I'm just an engineer who happens to do it. But it would be helpful to understand and recognize that Black people have made massive contributions to engineering in worldwide. So, for example, I was just thinking about, there's a woman called Gladys West who helped design the GPS system. One of the first people to design a refrigerated truck. And if you think about refrigeration and the transport of fruit and food all over the world due to refrigeration, this guy called Frederick McKinsey Jones, designed the first truck to do that before they had to have routes of how far can I take this fruit and where's the nearest ice farm for me to be able to go there and stop off and then pack my truck so my fruit doesn't rot or whatever the goods may be. And just recently, I mean, only 2018, 2019, there's this young man called Silas Adekunle, who's a robotics engineer, making CEO, I think, of a company called Reach Robotics, just doing great things. So there are lots and lots of Black scientists, lots of Black engineers that are making contributions, and it would be great if some of that was recognized just generally. But that I think is as a person, that's the challenge, that we have to be able to go into the workplace and deliver.
I think it's also, you as an individual have that challenge. There is this whole topic of how do we all contribute to racial parity, and the whole idea that we raise awareness, almost not talking about it is part of the problem sometimes, isn't it? And that's why I was keen for you to mention it today, because I think people do need to talk about it. They do need to be aware about their subconscious biases that you might have. You might not think you're being racist when you do a certain thing, or you don't do something, more to the point. and making people, just highlighting that, think about not just Black people or BAME people or disabled people and women in engineering, anybody who's a minority, being very conscious of that inclusion.
Yeah, I think obviously we are a minority within society, so therefore the responsibility, I really believe, lies on the majority to include. So, you know, you're in class, or you're at university, you're in a seminar, you're in a workshop, you have that, I'm not saying that you have to take it on every single time, but you can include people that you notice are not being included. And sometimes it's very easy just to kind of dismiss it and say, well, okay, though, somebody else will take care of it. But from time to time, why don't you take care of it? You know what I mean? I'm not saying that you have to take the 100% responsibility every time it has to be you. No, but in terms of as a group, as a society, what we say to ourselves is, if we believe that a group is marginalized, just in general, we say, what can we do to assist that marginalized group? And that's my thing, is just think about treating everyone as a human being. And if you thought about how you would like to be treated in the opposite situation, then that will take you a long way.
Developing that compassion for all. You know what, you talked about the real McCoy phrase yesterday, and Sambit here, who's watching us live, has mentioned Eliza McCoy as an inventor. Yeah. Remind me what he did.
So Elijah McCoy was an engineer, and he basically helped develop a lubrication system for railways, and it would allow the engines and the locomotives not to sorry, he was providing lubrication so the wheels or whatever it is that needed to turn and they wouldn't lock up. So he basically designed this system of lubrication which allowed the engines to run, and therefore the locomotives to run, and therefore provide better service, better longevity, etc., etc. So what happened was that there were corresponding, or there were different devices on the marketplace, and the terminology came up to say, this is a real McCoy, i.e. this is a unit that's been designed by him, as compared to some other unit designed by another company that didn't work as well. So this is where the term the real McCoy comes from his actual engineering work.
Okay, brilliant. I find that story fascinating. Thank you. And thank you, Sambit, for mentioning it and reminding me that we wanted to bring it up today. Checking that we've got some questions now. Sambit, in fact, is a regular viewer to our live events. He's asked, can we use humanoid robots in the industrial environment? And that's in context as we have limited access to various tasks in industry when we use traditional industrial robots. So it's using the use of humanoid robots in an industrial environment.
We're not there yet. There are companies like Boston Robotics who are developing humanoid robots, but we're not there yet. There are still quite a few things to do in terms of safety, in terms of what we would call the compliance of a robot. That is, how softly does it, when it comes against a feature or a hard feature, how does it mold itself? How does it bend? So as a human being, if I bang into you, yes, I might knock you over, but I'm not going to kill you. I can moderate my force that I'm going to apply to a particular situation. Most robots can't do that at the present time.
Right.
Although there are sensors that we're able to put on them and to be able to do certain things, but right now we're not in that position to be able to generally put humanoid robots into spaces that human beings will be in. It's just too dangerous at this present time.
Okay. Well, I hope that has clarified and answered your question as much as we can at the current state of technology advancement. Any more questions, please do put them in the chat box. There's been some great feedback on sharing the story about the real McCoy. I think there's plenty of people who probably use that phrase but have no idea of the origins. So that's a nice anecdote to add in there.
Thank you.
I think that pretty much wraps us up, Patrick. But before you go, are there any particular tips or things you'd like to highlight for students as you wrap up today in terms of their future career, things that they should be doing, or just philosophies that they should be embracing, specific actions that they should be taking on board immediately?
Wow, that's a big one. What obviously they're coming up to your end of year exams, so you need to do the work on that. But as I say, apply as much as you can to a wide range of different companies. If you know what you want to do, then obviously go for it. But if you've got a more generic or general feel to say, well, to be honest, I just want a job, then apply. And wherever you go and whatever you're doing, be enthusiastic and be flexible, and that will, as I say, take you a very long way. I say this to my family all the time: just be kind. And if you can be kind, you know, that flexibility, enthusiasm, being a human being, it will take you wherever you want to go.
Brilliant. Some fantastic takeaways there from Patrick. Thank you so much. Thank you. I would like to remind people we've got some really great interviews that you can watch back on demand, just like Patrick's will be available to watch back on demand. The one we did in January with Joni Valerio. Joni was a bit different to you, Patrick. Joni decided she'd got a particular company in America. She's a chemical engineer, and she decided, I want to work for Merck, and no matter what, I'm going to work for Merck. And she set that out as her mission goal, and she worked for Merck. And she's worked for Merck the whole of her career, developing all kinds of drugs, from the AIDS drugs to cancer drugs to gunshot wound drugs, all kinds of things, and scaling them up from the initial kind of pharmaceutical side of things to mass production. So if you want to check out that one, and you're interested in that perspective to approaching your career or chemical engineering, check out Joni Valerio's. Then we've got various people who work from big companies like Joni did to working from small companies, and the benefits that you have those different approaches. Working for a small company in the variety, whereas other people have said working from a large company in the variety. They all bring different things. So I'd encourage you to go back and look at those. Last October, we spoke to a 90-year-old who was a Korean War veteran, and he went into being a mechanical engineer. He worked in the naval side of things, and then he worked for Nestle looking at food production, and then finally he moved in the latter part of his career after he'd done up his house. He then went into water treatment on the Isle of Wight. There's lots of different stories that I think, whether you're a student or whether you're just, already out there in the world of work and you're really curious, I'd encourage you to go back and have a look at those. The one we have coming up next one, we have a gentleman called Mohammed Alamouche, and Mohammed is an aerospace engineer. He studied at the Jordan University of Science and Tech, and he worked for Royal Jordan Airlines, and then he moved into a company owned by Boeing. So we'll be learning all about his career in the aerospace industry as an aeronautical engineer, both having studied in Jordan, then having moved to the Netherlands after working in Jordan for a certain period of time as well. So join us for that one with Mohammed on the 7th of April. It will be at the same time. It's 2 p.m. GMT. Well, it actually will be BST, British Summertime, by the time we get to that. It will be shown up on the YouTube playlist, which is the Drive Live playlist. If you click the reminder bell, it will go into your YouTube reminders. and it will show up in your local time zone, so you don't have to worry about it, that. All right, well, Patrick, thank you so much. I'm going back to check. We've had some really nice feedback in the chat box. Brat Lannis is really very much appreciative. A student there, Chris Rice actually was our guest last month as well. I'd encourage you to go and check out Chris's story. Chris, really appreciated you sharing your story today as well. So thank you, Patrick.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dion.
You know what, one thing we almost forgot to do before we go, because we talk about Drive Live with an engineer,
Yes.
we like to, and this is a storytelling element, we like to look at people's different careers and how they connect with different vehicles. So this is yours, Patrick, isn't it? Do you want to talk us through your different parts of the different vehicles they represent? So
the Rover 213 is one of the cars that I was working on when I first started at Rover. Yes, that was one of the first cars that I was working on. The Rover 800 was my boss's car, which I drove and crashed, which he wasn't very happy about. But that was on the way to Oxford, and I basically broke his mirror, so he wasn't very happy about that. The the Volkswagen Golf Gti is one of my favorite cars that I had personally, having graduated and graduated. Yeah, it was just a great car. BMW Series 3, just love that car. And the Porsche Panamera is a car that I haven't got yet, but is one that I'm looking to get pretty soon.
Excellent. Well, good luck with getting your Porsche Panamera. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, everybody. Don't forget, 7th of April is the next time we're on Drive Live with an Engineer. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, everybody.